Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. This is episode 062. My name is Isaac Tauaefa, and I'm here with
Josh Straussberger.
JP Dinnell.
my guys.
What's up, y'all?
My guys.
We're all thinking about Steven as he's making his way back to the DFW area right now.
Yep.
It's had a long day, man.
Yeah.
Abilene.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Abilene, Stevensville, Abilene, and back. Like he's been doing.
Making hauls.
Yeah. Yep. All right, what's up, man?
Well, it's good to be here with you guys. Missed you a little bit last episode.
That was a good episode. I listened to it, finished it today.
Yeah, it was good. It was good because Kramer was on.
Good.
And he had some great stuff to bring. He was good. And Lucas,
Yeah, and Lucas.
It was nice to be with them. Well, I'm just gonna get into the sponsor real quick. We got some stuff. We got some good stuff later on, but so we have two sponsors for this episode. First sponsor is our friends at Justin Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Our friend Tristan Gazal, and black belt under Formiga. Great guy, a brother of ours, a friend of ours through ministry. He has his heart is for Jesus and for building up people. So, and that plays out in the way that he runs his school. He has some business partners there, professors that are awesome as well. But Justin Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Justin, Texas, they have a lot of great programs. They have a law enforcement officer program. Law enforcement officers can train for free until blue belt.
That is legit.
But Tristan was talking to me last night, and he was telling me he is perplexed that there are like very little law enforcement officers that actually come train.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's an issue in the law enforcement community. I know we deal with that with Echelon Front, and then what we've been trying to do in regards to leadership training, and especially combatives training and jiu-jitsu. It's perplexing for sure. But then, you try to have a little empathy and realize, like, these guys live very stressful lives.
Yeah.
And, by the time they get done with a full day of work, that full shift, and, they're running some overtime and, covering out for other shifts, they're trying to get home to their families. And, I can have some empathy for like how busy some of these guys are. Yeah. Now, the money maker for getting law enforcement trained is going to them.
Yeah.
Because if you can go to them, now they should definitely be at Tristan's gym and any gyms around the nation, and the fact that they do that is incredible. It's an education problem because law enforcement, they don't understand the value. And while, yes, it is extra time to their day, like they should be trained, because when you have a profession that can get you killed, you can't be an amateur.
Right.
You can't be an amateur in your ability to defend yourself with your health, with your ability to use your weapon platforms, and to be able to de-escalate to where you don't have to grab a weapon, you don't have to grab a taser. You can do a basic foot sweep and put them in a little gift wrap and hold them there, and then roll them over and handcuff them. Like, these are things that every police officer should be able to do by themselves.
100%.
But they don't do it because they're not trained. Now, it's also I get upset with the leadership in these different police agencies because they don't put an emphasis on the training. Mm-hmm. If it was so, the good leaders, guess what's part of the workday? Combatives training.
Right.
Yep.
Chief Roger Shy up in Pocatello, Idaho. Guess what they do? Part of their workday is combatives training.
Yep.
And, they bring out Hoist Gracie and other guys out to train their guys. And they have a lot of guys that are highly trained in combatives and jiu-jitsu, and it's open to anybody and everybody. That's part of the workday, part of their paid day. And these are all things that have been approved by the city and everything else like that. So it's not like, oh, they shouldn't be doing that on their work. Actually, you should want your first responders to be training, and they should be getting paid to work out and to be healthy and,
top of their game.
And to be the top percent out there. They're protecting our neighborhoods and our communities. I want my police officers in shape. I want them to have time. I want them, you know what? Yes, I do want them to get paid to go work out.
Yep.
I do want them to get paid to have combative training and to go to the range. It's sad. Most law enforcement, they have to pay for the range time and their ammo to go shoot.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing. most agencies, when they shoot their re-qual, so once a year they have to do a qual, they take those 50 rounds out of their paycheck.
No way.
Yep.
Are you?
Yep. So
It's broken.
So
Yeah.
it's a broken system for
Yep.
sure. And so I know I'm going off a tangent. We can talk about this another time, but I wanted to give all that context or content, whatever you would use for that, to kind of paint the picture of like that's why.
Yeah,
Because
I've got a good friend in North
'cause,
Carolina, and it's similar, and I'm pretty sure they've just taken it upon their little. He's on a task unit, but they've taken it upon themselves to just get together, and a couple of guys are already like brown belts,
Yeah.
and they just train with each other just because they know
It's important.
they know they need to, but it's not through the city or anything.
Yeah. So there's multiple reasons why Tristan's gym isn't full of first responders. 1, ego.
Mm-hmm.
2, ego. 3, ego.
Yeah. True.
Right. So it's ego from the individuals. It's ego from their leadership, being able to give them the time to go train. And it's an ego thing. It's 100% an ego thing because also people don't think they need to train.
True.
Guess what? If you knew that your life would depend on your ability to like, if your life depended on your ability to use jiu-jitsu while out there working, you wouldn't make excuses and you'd be training.
Man, and those, like you said, if your life is, if the difference between you making it home to your family and not making it home to your family was a physical altercation where someone attacked you and you couldn't get to your weapon and you had to use skills that you've acquired or not acquired, you need to be. It could be that difference between life and death.
And the other reason, I'm actually Amanda Roberts, so we have an Origin Immersion camp every year. Well, this year they have a law enforcement only first responder camp the second week. So it's a week right after it.
Sweet.
And she asked, her and Dedeco asked me to be an instructor for that. And the reason why is because I helped revamp all the combatives training that we did in the SEAL teams. And
Sweet.
it was because, like, yeah, hey, we're gunfighters, but there is situations overseas, even overseas. Like, no, we don't kill everybody. Guess what? We don't. I had more times that I de-escalated than I actually did kill bad people overseas. It's actual. That's what the numbers are, 100%. And we recognized that was a problem. And so I helped Jocko revamp the training on the West Coast. And one of the things was the combative systems and training, because even though we are gunfighters, we have to have the ability to de-escalate those threats and not use excessive force and deadly force. Well, if you are a first responder and you're wanting to go home to your family, which you should, and you're in a bad situation and you're stressed out and you're not trained properly, guess what? You're going to use excessive force.
Absolutely.
And that's going to put you in a lawsuit. That's going to put you, there's liabilities. There's a lot of things that go along with that. But if you're a somewhat skilled blue belt,
oh man,
you're not going to have those stresses.
No.
You're not going to have those issues. You're going to just be like, all right, cool. Hey, we're going to do this. And then when you train with your partners doing a 2-on-1 takedown to freaking cuffing somebody, it's like easy. And guess what? The person you're arresting doesn't get hurt.
They're safe.
They're safe.
You're safe. Your partner's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you should go train.
You should go train.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're
go
in the
train with
Justin
Justin.
area,
Go train at Justin Jiu-Jitsu because Tristan is a great instructor. Those guys are awesome. He whooped my butt today. I mean, it was.
Did you were at noon?
Yeah.
I had to miss it.
It's
my favorite one to go to.
I showed up late. I was just crazy. It's been a crazy couple days. And I just was like, you know what? All these problems, all these things I'm trying to work through right now aren't going to be solved in the next 90 minutes to 2 hours anyways. Doesn't matter what I do. I need to reset so that I can think clearly and work through some problems. I'm going to go train. And I showed up a little late, which for me is always like, I don't care. Show up. Just get here. And, man, Tristan beat the brakes off of me in the most gentle, loving, kind way ever. And then he showed me a sub at the end. He goes, it's funny. He's like, I don't want to show you this, but I'm going to. And he showed it to me. And I was like, oh, this is sick. He's like,
great.
yeah, you're going to, yeah. And I'm like, thank you.
This will be fun.
Let's go. Yeah, he's a great dude. And I think you should go train with him if you're in that Justin area.
100%.
Go train with him and those great people up in that area. They have homeschool classes, and they also have a recovery and injury rehab spot. Dave Kroll and I put some saunas in that location as well. So they have some amazing infrared saunas, stretch table, all that kind of stuff. So go check them out. The other sponsor of this podcast. So there's a friend of the ministry named Bud Jackman, and he sponsored this podcast episode, but on behalf of a friend. His friend's name is Chemo Clark. So Chemo has a pretty big following on Instagram. He's the owner of an excavation company in Maui called Truth Excavation. He's a strong believer, loves Jesus, spreads the word. He actually has a Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu shirt. I've seen him in it before. Well, actually, Bud bought it from us and sent it to him. But so this is why Bud sponsored it on behalf of Chemo. He said he's a solid Christian brother. He trains Jiu-Jitsu. He lost his house in the Lahaina fires in August. Him and his guys were saving people all night that night. They have been on the ground since, helping out and now clearing lots so people can rebuild. He said, I just want to shed some light on that and his situation, along with so many others that lost everything from the fires. It's still a long road ahead, and many people not in Hawaii have completely forgotten already what happened there. So, and then he said, I'm not one for a lot of words, so I hope this helps. But of course, I mean, said it beautifully, and helped convey the heart of Chemo and his crew there in Maui. So we want to give them a shout out. His name, or his Instagram is at TRU.xlife. TRU.xlife.
X isn't just X or EX? Like
No, just the letter X.
Okay.
Yep, just the letter X.
How do you spell Chemo's name?
Kimo, and then last name is Clark. But yeah, I've been following him ever since. Bud had told me about him like maybe last year or something when he sent him a shirt, and yeah, so small world. And when you are a believer, that's a small world, and when you do jiu-jitsu, that's an even smaller world. So shout out to Chemo, to Bud, to all those guys there, and we send our love and appreciation for all that you're doing for the people of Lahaina. So
Yeah, for sure.
And shout out to people buying our merch.
Yeah.
And supporting us. It's been a couple weeks, but when we were at the three of us were at Jiu-Jitsu World League, it was just cool to look up in the stands, and I think I counted at least just random within the same 10 minutes, like 10 shirts.
yeah,
And
at
I didn't
least.
know a lot of the people in the shirts. So
I didn't know a lot, and
So
it was really cool.
you know, Instagram guy, he was a fittest like kicker, or was fittest man in the NFL. That guy is Steve Weatherford. Is his name?
Oh yeah.
So
Giants.
yeah,
Wasn't he for the Giants?
yeah, I think so. Kicker for the Giants. He was like, anyway, you know, he's all over social media and stuff. But someone, Kramer, was showing me a video of his yesterday, and there's a guy. He's talking to a group of guys, and they're all like going for a run or something. And one of the guys in the front's wearing a Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu shirt. I'm like, the heck? Like, just spotted completely in the
That's
wild.
awesome.
In the
He-
wild,
He
yeah.
lives in South Lake.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay. We're super interesting, man. I mean, just in a video, you know, so cool. But anyway, thank you guys for supporting. It's been a blessing to the ministry. It enables us to do more, to spread the gospel, to make disciples, to give Bibles to people, to continue to further the mission.
That's awesome.
And so we appreciate that. Well, hey, I wanted to read this. Maybe this could kind of set the tone here for us and steer some conversation. So
Before you do that, can we open?
Oh
it?
yeah, please.
I'm
Yeah.
thirsty.
Yeah, me too, man. Please go ahead.
Go ahead
It's
and
on you, dude.
It's on me.
It's on you, dude.
3, 2, 1. This is for Steven
And that was for Danny.
and for Danny from Steven. I'm just the middleman, Danny. Yeah, so we'll just keep on with the sponsors, right? We'll just keep it short and sweet.
go
Jocko
ahead.
Fuel, we appreciate them, their sponsorship, their clean energy. Use JJ 10 at checkout for 10% off.
1-0.
Yes, 10.
Yep.
The number 10.
Yep.
10% off your order. We appreciate them, and y'all support using them. So
It's good stuff. So last night I went to the book launch of The Overcomers, which is a book by Matt Chandler. So Matt did a Q&A at his church, the Village Church in Highland Village, Texas, and he put out this book. It's about Revelation, but it's a lot about God's plan for us, and that we exist in this time frame because he ordained this time for us to be alive and for us to to walk in to walk in our calling, because it's not an accident that we exist in this time frame in the world. And so I'm reading through the book, and I just highlighted some. We're going to start doing this. We talked about this, and I don't know if it'll be all the time, but we definitely want to be able to highlight some of this. We consume a lot of stuff. We're constantly trying to improve and grow and learn, and so I mean, we always send each other stuff that we see, we read, we watch, things like that. But we want to share that with you as well. So Matt wrote this book, The Overcomers. In this verse, he's talking about, or in this chapter, he's talking about how the enemy lies to us, like how he manipulates and wells up, or causes wounds to fester, so that we will get further from God, so that we'll have a bigger target on our back, we'll have bigger distractions and blockage, so we can't hear the voice of God, so we can't get wise counsel. Like, so this is the way that he creates these issues and problems. JP, if you want to read that verse, it's the verse that he cites earlier in this, before he prefaces how the enemy lies to you or twists your perceptions. He quotes John 8, verse 44.
All right, John 8:44. For you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies.
Yeah, so we talked about this right before we recorded, but Lucas was giving us some context as well. But earlier in that chapter, he's talking to the religious leaders, and they're saying, no, we're the children of Abraham. He's like, no, you're the children because of deceit, because of sin. You're the children of, your sin is born of the devil, and you are, when you're sinning and when you choose sin, you are, walking in the path of the enemy. So, he has a succinct version here. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. John 8:44. So here, a couple things I highlighted here. There are three main ways Satan tries to twist our perception of our unique design with his lies. The first is through words and wounds. The second is through comparison. And lastly, through an attempt at perfection. Strongholds take hold of us, but if we're not careful, we'll also take hold of them. They can make us feel safe or in control, even as they disrupt and destroy our lives. There's a lot here I want to read through, but I'll try to keep it short. I'm going to skip around a little bit. The first one, words and wounds. Matt's talking about how he believed a lie from when he was young, and it took him 30 years to sort it out in his mind. And he says, I figured out that those thoughts were short-circuiting certain areas of my life. And only with some deep, painful work with a trusted counselor and faithful friendships did I recognize it and see that stronghold break. This is how the enemy works. He knows that you, the real you, were made for the day. So he comes in through a wound or a careless word spoken over you. He aims to paralyze and destroy you, to permanently crush your spirit so that you lay down your weapons and give in. He says that this stronghold began for him when he had misread a situation that had nothing to do with him. But you internalize those words, and then over time it just became his identity, or like a insecurity that always was afflicting him. The second one is comparison, the thief of gratitude. It says the more clearly we see Jesus, the more clearly we see who we really are reflected. The more clearly we see Jesus, the more clearly we see who we really are reflected in our identity as his children. That would make us a real problem for the devil's schemes and strategies, because the last thing Satan wants is for us to walk in confidence and security as ourselves. He wants each of us to think, there's something wrong with me. Comparison robs us of a life of gratitude and makes us more like Satan, whom the Bible calls the accuser of our brothers, Revelation 12:10. And so when Matt's talking about a life of gratitude, he says he's talking about being grateful for your personhood, not your possessions. I'm talking about gratitude that God made you, you. It's not arrogant to be grateful for how God has wired you and marvel at how he uses you. It's an overcorrection away from the current cult of expressive individualism to hate yourself or fail to acknowledge that God has been significantly at work in your life. So that's the chunk I'll take from comparison. Embracing imperfection. The only perfect person who has ever lived is Jesus of Nazareth. You already know this, but let me remind you anyway. No one else has come close to perfection. No matter a person's exploits or stunning abilities, we're all a mixture of shadow and light, gold and dust. Our great enemy wants you stuck in a very real spiritual paralysis because you happen to be an imperfect human. But remember that God wants to use your natural abilities and spiritual gifts for a purpose. If the enemy can get you stuck in fear over faith and have you believing that other people can do what God has given you to do better than you can, he can ultimately take you out of the fight. Perfectionism has us living in fear, forgetting that God doesn't measure success by outcomes, but by bold faith. And a faith that pleases God. So there's so much that stood out to me in this. If you guys need me to reread anything, let me know. But the piece for me was that middle one, the thief of gratitude or comparison. Yeah, man. And I have never thought of this before, that it is not arrogance to be grateful for God has wired you and to be amazed at how he uses you. Because it feels self-congratulatory to say, like, well, I have these abilities or skills. I'm saying these aren't things I think I say to other people. Yeah. But I'm even like afraid sometimes to even believe them about myself, that God called me to do something, that he equipped me to do something for his glory. I have a pastor friend that I don't know where he got this, but he just like would say it very succinctly. He would say, if the affection terminates on the object, it's sin, it's misplaced. But if the affection continues on heavenward, then it is right affection. So like, man, JP, you are so gifted at XYZ. And for you to say like, yeah, I am, like, I'm great, right? In your mind, like, yeah, I am great at these things. But the affection is just resting on you. Yeah. But if you're like, yes, I am great at these things because God in his grace gifted me with these. Yeah. And it's not just like a little suffix you add to the end. It's like, no, you just tag on, oh yeah, by the grace of God. It's like, no, really, I believe that I am gifted. Yeah. But it's only because of his grace and equipment. And
I've honored the gifts that he's given me to
cultivate
them. And I know a lot of people that are wasted talent.
Yep.
A lot of people. I used to nickname one of my MMA training buddies Whiskey Tango. He's like, why you call me Whiskey Tango? I'm like, 'cause you're wasted talent. Oh, gosh. I was like, God has given you so much talent, but yet you are one of the laziest dudes ever. You'd rather smoke weed, sleep in, and come in half-butt training. Man. I was like, if you actually put half of the effort these other guys put in here, you would be a high-level pro. But you're not, because you're wasting the gift God has given you. I was just like, man. I didn't care, because he was. Well, and he had never had anybody say that to him.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Got a lot of guys like that are super talented, that can do everything but don't ever apply themselves. They need to hear that.
And guess what? He's now fighting the big shows.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Not the big show, but the big shows.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, it's awesome. So was there any part, and again, like I said, I can reread some of this. It was a lot. But are there any other parts that stood out to you guys? I mean, I'm going to extrapolate.
I had a question for you guys, kind of running on that that thread. I really like that as a reminder of like, hey, be grateful for how God created you.
Yep.
What do you think is a good practice that somebody could use to be grateful, acknowledge God's gifts, but yet remain humble?
Well, there's a couple that come to mind, but I would say, first of all, being grateful, reflecting on the things that you are grateful that God has done in your life and gifted you with. I would say, and I've said this a bunch of times, but a prayer journal has been a blessing to me, because I get to actually write out and express to God, I'm so thankful that you did this in my life. You are so, there's a prayer model. We've mentioned it before, ACTS prayer model. It's like adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication. I think that's what it is. Yeah. So it's like, you adore the Lord first and foremost. God, you are the creator of all things. You are worthy of all praise. You are the end and the beginning. You are, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You are like just adoring him for all that he is, right? Then you are confessing the ways that you've sinned against him. Then you are giving him thanks for all he's done in your life. And that would include, I think, your gifting, the abilities. And then last supplication, then you're asking, like, Lord, here's what I need. These are my needs. These are the needs of my friends, my family.
Yeah.
It's a good prayer model. It's not saying you have to pray like that, but
Man,
But if you
solid.
But if you write it out in your prayer journal, you can always reflect on it, and also it helps me to choose my words more carefully.
And I think it's cool because it can also be a good reminder that as you go back through, you're like,
oh yeah,
it's like we have a common friend that's going through some really hard times right now, and I was talking with them, and I'm like, hey, this bad time. Yes, it's bad.
Yep.
There's some stuff going on. But man, you've gotten through a lot of other really bad times. You're going to get through this.
Yes.
Like you're going to get through this. Like there's no other options.
Yeah.
Like you got to get through this and you're going to. And you've got to confess and you've got to pray through some of these things and you've got to work, but I was just trying to like encourage this person. I'm like, hey, I promise you, there are people going through a lot worse things.
Yep.
Like a lot worse things.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be okay.
Man.
It's gonna be not right now.
Yeah.
And I know you can't even see that.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, like, in some time, like there will be healing, and you'll be able to like, get through some stuff. So
that's actually a good comparison, really. I mean, that helps you contextualize your pain and your suffering, is like to compare it to the pain and suffering of people who are really in worse positions. Helps you to be grateful. You know, you're like, so I'm saying don't compare your life to other people or your gifting to other people and be frustrated or discouraged that you think someone else is better, because again, like Matt's saying, God called you specifically to do something, and you don't have to worry about if someone's better at you than something else. He called you to do something. But in a positive way, you can compare your suffering to other people who have suffered more, who are going through worse, and it helps you to be grateful.
Yeah, it was funny because I was talking to this guy, and Steven was trying to call me, and I'm like, I can't get this call right now. I text Steven, like, I'll call you back later, But it was just, I think it's a good reminder for all of us that, hey, it doesn't matter how bad things are. Mm-hmm. Things can get better. They will get better. Yep. There's a process to improving your situation and, taking ownership over these things in your life. And what are the things, I mean, we've talked about this. What are the things that you can always take ownership over? Your attitude, your integrity, your work ethic, and your discipline.
How you respond to things.
Yeah. Exactly. So if that's what you are going to start taking ownership over, you'll be able to work through this stuff. It's going to be hard, but what's the alternative?
Right. Laying down and quitting?
Yeah, no, that's not an option.
No.
So.
Well, so that actually ties in with this. Here's an excerpt from the words and wounds section. He's talking about when something happens to you that causes you to be better, and maybe sometimes a difficult situation. I meet a lot of people with, like, we talk about church hurt, but a lot of times there's people that they're like, where was God when I was going through this? Like, I saw what he did for this person, and if he cares so much, why didn't he walk me through this? So he says, here's the truth. You are not the thing that happened to you, and you are not to blame for the evil perpetrated against you. Satan wants you stuck in regret, self-hatred, self-blame, defined by that moment. He doesn't want you to experience redemption and healing, and he certainly doesn't want you restored and weaponized against your true enemy. He's desperate to get you to either isolate or join a community of bitterness and revenge rather than redemption and release.
Man, that's true. That's so true. Part of that, what you said too, it's like, I know something that I've struggled with, like negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. And, when you're talking about your calling, just feeling unworthy for that calling, and you can feel the enemy like whispering in your ear, like, you can't talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. Look at what you've done. Look at all that. And man, it seems so powerful, because that is what he's going to try to do. And he's just going to pick at those wounds to try to drag you back into it.
That's like that. Well, the verse that we talked about on the last podcast, I know you just listened to it, but it was about like rejoicing in your, like glorying even more in your suffering or like your weaknesses, like, right? Like I'm boasting even more in my weaknesses.
Right.
So sin in the past that you've repented of and been forgiven of, but you made a mistake in the past, is that weakness that you can boldly share now to encourage other people.
Right. It's used for other people. Yeah.
Yeah. But the enemy, of course,
the enemy is like, you don't need to go in there and talk about it. People know you, man.
Yep.
People know what you've done.
Yep.
And how you are, and you can, like JP said, you can fall into it or keep going and own what you need to own on it.
Well, it's weird because if you think about it, like people that, if they didn't have that same background or they didn't sin, like if someone, like no one's perfect. But like if you really thought you were, how would that affect the way that you come off to other people? Like you've never done anything bad. You've never, said something you regret. You've never hurt someone.
And even on the flip side, like I know this isn't always right, but sometimes it's hard for me to, like, if I perceive, and it's my perception, it's not them doing anything wrong. It's a total me thing. But you go somewhere and there's a pastor preaching, he's super squeaky clean, and he doesn't seem to know anything.
Yeah.
How easy it is for me, like, man, you can't tell me anything. You don't know anything about that type of stuff. Now, I think there's a dichotomy of that, though, because
100% agree.
He's preaching the word, and that's what's going to speak to you.
Yeah, if you're using the word, it's a roadmap.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to focus on. And the other thing, while, like my pastor, right, he's been preaching since he was 16.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like you haven't done, like, really bad things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a blessing.
That's a great thing.
That's incredible.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But you know what? He's heard everything.
Right.
He's worked through everything with people. And guess what? That gives you actual insight and experience on these things. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad that my pastor hasn't
that's what you
done
want.
These things, but I also wouldn't care.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't make a difference to me. Like, if you're preaching out of the word, I don't care if you got out of prison last week.
Right.
For me, that doesn't matter to me. Yeah. And thankfully, because I think of my time in the SEAL teams of just learning, like, hey, man, do not judge people based off their past. It's what are they currently doing? What's their character like? What's their integrity like?
Right.
And what's the truths that they're speaking?
100%.
And if somebody's preaching from the word of God and being genuine and not being manipulative,
that's what's doing the work.
I will sit and talk with you all day long.
Right.
It's like you guys were talking about in one of the other podcast episodes about, people's heart towards praise and worship.
Yeah.
And it was just like, hey, just read the words on the screen. Just read those.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you want to sing them, cool. If you don't, cool. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, don't get wrapped up on like, oh, the guitar. No, this is my opportunity to worship God.
Right.
Here's the other thing. For someone who's listening, you're like, oh yeah, it's just, you know what? Then just shut your eyes, raise your hands, lift your hands to the Lord, and just continuously say, Jesus, I love you. Soften my heart. Jesus, I love you.
Yep.
Give me strength. Jesus, I love you. You know what I mean? Like all the things. Just say, I love you, Jesus.
Yeah.
I love you, Jesus.
Yeah.
I love.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's worship.
It's your heart posture.
Yep.
It's your heart posture. So, anyways.
No, that's great. I think Josh was, well, we were talking about wounds and words. I think another piece of what you were talking about, not feeling worthy, an overcorrection sometimes is the third one, the perfection. That happens to me too. Like if you don't feel worthy, or you've been made to feel at some point in your life like you can't cut it, you didn't do enough, whatever. The overcorrection is like, well, then I have to be perfect. It has to be perfect. I have to do everything. Like it has to be top notch. And if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And I'm not like, you're so hard on yourself. Yeah, I'm not good. But if you could, this is such false thinking, but if I could somehow produce something perfect,
which
then
will
they'll
never
think
happen.
then maybe someone will think, then I'll be worthy of whatever, Nah, but that is clearly just like why Matt Chandler included it in this. One of the main ways that Satan tries to twist our perceptions of our unique design. He lies to us in these ways. So
that's good.
Yeah, man.
I can't wait to dive into this book.
Yeah. you said you're like, I asked you if you wanted me to get you one. You were like, nah, I got 5 copies on the way.
I pre-ordered. I always do that for any of
He's
my
like-
friends that buy a book that have a book. I'll order depending on.
That's so good.
Yeah, I'll text him and be like, I'm getting this book. Don't order it. I already got you.
Yeah,
one.
I already
exactly,
have
yeah.
one for you.
I think you have a couple books for me
I
somewhere.
actually do have a couple books for you guys in my office.
But
That's
good.
awesome.
Want to
Yeah.
support Matt Chandler, and if you're listening, you should do the same thing. It'd be a good Father's Day gift, Mother's Day gift, 4th of July gift, summer break gift, back to school gift, Labor
Tuesday
Day,
gift.
Christmas. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, God put you on my heart.
Oh
gift.
man, dude, that is one of the best gifts you could ever give somebody. Like, and I've given extreme ownership to a few people, and man, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you get books all the time, but I don't give books all the time, and I'm telling you, you have to read this. Like,
That's awesome.
it will change the way that you think about so many things. I've done that with a few books, but very, very rarely. But Extreme Ownership's one of them.
Yeah,
But I mean, reading through things like this, people that are struggling, people that have identity issues, that have believed lies about themselves, this will be an amazing book to give.
Because everybody has that.
Yeah.
That connects with everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how Extreme Ownership became a New York Times #1 bestseller and maintained at the top of the charts for a very long time. Is because someone would read it and go, "Oh man."
Yeah.
And then they'd go order 3 to 5 copies and then give them out to friends. And then those people would be like, oh, man. And then they would do the same thing.
Yes.
And it rapidly grew.
My mistake was I gave mine away. I had a first edition, but I just kept giving away. So if you go to my shelf now, it's like the newest, cleanest. 'Cause I just keep giving them away.
What's it mean? Mine that I have, like in the front part here, has like there's 2 like pieces somebody scribbled there.
Those are the signed edition.
You mean the signed copy?
Oh, that's what it is.
Is this a weird flex?
I know. I mean, I was just saying the version that I have has.
Does
like,
it say
in
lead
the
win? And
Yeah.
that's their signature.
Oh, is it?
Idiot.
Yeah, I thought someone just scribbled in the front, but it's
yeah.
actually signed by Jocko and
This is a
Ray,
weird
both
flex,
authors.
isn't it?
Yeah. Like yours is signed by
Yeah,
Matt
but
Chandler.
Matt-
Like this?
You know what's funny? So Matt, I got the book at the Q&A, and then we went to the main session, and Kramer showed up late. He got the book from the main session, so we stood in line to say what's up to Matt. So he popped up, gave us some hugs, and was like, "What's up, man?" And we were like, "Hey, can we get your signature?" You know,
That's awesome.
so we popped open our books, and he signed Kramer's, and I opened mine. It was already signed. He was like, "Get out of here! I already signed your book," but it was from the Q&A session. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I asked for a double signature. I didn't get it.
He didn't even personalize it?
Nah, I know, right?
Scrub.
I thought he'd be like,
Matt.
Scrub.
I thought he'd be like, "Thanks for submitting me this morning." You know, we just trained like
Thanks
not
for
even
the
12 hours ago.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
No,
You know
man.
what Leif does was when he gifts books to people, like he gave me a book, Water Beneath the Walls.
Oh, yeah. The SEAL history?
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible book. He wrote me a custom letter on the inside of it.
So cool,
You
man.
do that. I've got a few books from you that you
Sometimes I try to do that.
or a personalized note.
yeah,
right,
something like, "Hey, Josh."
That's very meaningful.
like because I never wanted to do that. I'm like, well, I didn't write the book, but it's like, no, I got this book for you as a gift, and it's like, same thing as putting a card. So
Oh, it's
Leif does
perfect.
that,
But it
to
lasts
everybody.
forever.
That's awesome.
Card you'll lose or throw away or whatever,
Yep.
but it's in the book.
I
That's
got
so
to
cool.
meet John Stryker Meyer at the muster. Same thing. He was like, "Is there anything you want me to say?" I'm like, "You just say whatever you want." And he writes like this thoughtful thing in there.
The amount of time he took to write customized notes to everybody.
Bro.
Yeah, if you don't know who John Stryker Meyer is, just look up on Jocko's podcast, John Stryker Meyer. Go listen to the very first one that he was on. It's like literally his stories are unreal. Unreal what him and their unit had a 100 and something % casualty.
Yeah, because they'd get wounded and go back in and get wounded
Yeah.
again. It was like,
Everybody was, if you weren't killed, you were wounded. And guys were wounded multiple times. I mean, it was unreal
this guy was bagging orders for me
at the merch.
at the merch camp. I was like, "Please stop.
Yeah, like you need to just.
Please stop." And he was like, "No, I got you, buddy."
Dude, he's awesome. All right, so we're
But yeah,
getting off.
sorry.
No, that's funny. No, that's awesome. I love it. Well, yeah. So I
All
guess
in the personalization.
buy some copies of books that have deeply impacted you,
And
write
share
a note,
them.
Share them with people because you don't know the way that it can change somebody's life,
Right.
help them with their marriage. I mean, and give the Bible, dude. One of the greatest gifts ever like it personally in my life, the way I've been blessed is getting to give Bibles at the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu events.
Yes.
Which, by the way, when you buy merch and donate to the ministry, that's one of the things that we are able to purchase. We buy a bunch of Bibles, but giving them away to people,
Dude.
oh, so awesome. I have some friends that train at my jiu-jitsu school. Their kids train. They're young. They're like 8 and 6, I think, and or 8 and 5. And 2 little girls, sisters, and one of them I think got their very first Bible at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, and I got a picture later. She was in the back seat of the car on the way home, like reading through the Bible, wide-eyed,
awesome.
reading through, and she's like, she has not put this down. The next day, I think it was maybe the next day, was a picture of her reading. She was like, she didn't stop reading. Thank you so much for this. This is so cool. She's so excited to have her grown-up Bible, you know?
Dude, that's awesome.
Man,
What a blessing.
yeah, it is a blessing. So, well, yeah, I think, and the last thing that I just wanted to say, just because we went straight for the comparison and imperfection, but the last point was, and I realize now ways that this has happened to me, but that words and wounds thing about when someone has spoken something, and maybe it wasn't even directed at you, like Matt said, it was a misperception or misunderstood thing that wasn't even directed to him. But you internalize that. So I guess there's something to be said. We've talked about the power of the tongue, power of life and death in the tongue, and about how impactful your words can be on other people, especially as a parent. When I was young, and by the way, I just want to preface this: my mom was an amazing mom, is still an amazing mom. Never meant any, only built me up and encouraged me. But one time she told me, like, I remember I misspelled a word and needed help on my homework, and she just like said something off the cuff, like
She slipped up and made a mistake like every parent makes.
yes, like every parent makes, and was just like, oh yeah, I mean, something about like, you know, you're not, something about like, oh, you spelled that wrong. Like sometimes you spell words wrong. Like you're just not that great at spelling. It's okay. You're really good at this and this and this and this and this, right? I didn't hear the this and this and this and this. I heard I'm not good at spelling.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, I'm not good at spelling. And I remember being in school and being like, I didn't even want to try on the spelling test because I'm not a good speller, you know. But
That's
I remember
crazy.
like just, but yeah, I mean, in my mom, like it's just so
There
many
was
amazing.
there was
things.
zero negative intentions on
Yes.
her
Right.
end.
No.
She was actually trying to be encouraging.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder to be intentional with the words that you say and how
right.
you say it, because your mom is a sweet
Yes.
woman.
Yep.
And again, hey, I'm sure your mom has probably had times where she was short-tempered with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Like my mom was.
Yep.
Maybe your mom as well. but you know what? They loved us.
Oh gosh, And
Undeniable,
so full
right?
of grace
They
and
love the
love
Lord
and,
and the grace, and I mean, just so it's like, and then now as a parent, like you find yourself going, you know what, Cora, I did not mean that way. I
Yes,
just
yeah.
want you to know, and I'll just like, you know, and it's like, okay, Dad, thank you, and
Yeah.
but we'll talk through it, and that's one of the cool things about that we get to do as parents is we learn from people around us,
Dude,
and
yeah.
we're more intentional because we talk about this in the podcast and what we do. So it's cool that you're able to recognize that. You know,
man.
your mom obviously is a sweet, encouraging, loving woman that wanted you to win at life.
Yeah.
She was actually trying to encourage you.
Yes.
But because it was framed the wrong way, you only held on to the negative part, which isn't who you are.
Right.
But that's a manipulation from the
Yeah.
devil.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and he just like picks at that. Like, and I mean, and this was not something that affected my life later on. Like, I realized later, like, oh no, my mom didn't mean it. I don't know why I kept thinking about it, but I formed bad habits around that truth that I told myself that was a lie.
Well, as soon as you started, I'm sure the devil was just like, "Oh,
Yeah,
we're
you're
gonna
not
keep,
a-
even
yeah,
as a kid,
yeah.
we're just gonna poke that."
Yep. But then I realized later, like through studying and working hard, like no, I am a good speller. And my mom, I know her intentions now that I'm older. She never would have meant it like
Right.
that. And actually, I think I maybe mentioned it to her one time. She was like, babe, I don't remember that. I'm so sorry. I don't remember that though. You know, I never would have said it that way. I'm like, I know, but in my weird 8-year-old mind, I was just like, I'm a bad speller. My mom said I was a bad speller. But that makes me think now that I have a 6-year-old son, you know, 4-year-old daughter, 2-year-old daughter, it's like, yeah, I'm even more aware of how my words come off and how like,
bro.
dude, it's so
It's not
fragile.
really on topic, but I can't tell you how many times I've like lost my cool with my kid, and they're doing something legitimately bad that they need to
Be
it
reprimanded.
needs to be corrected. But then I go level 11 in escalating my voice. And I can't tell you how many times that I've had to go into the boys' room and be like, hey, let's unpack this.
Yep.
This is how I should have reacted. So you guys did something wrong. I had to address it. But always remember, I was wrong in how I addressed that with you. Now, this still stands, but I need to apologize to you. And like just those little things are like, I can't tell you how many times I've done that.
Yeah.
But as we learn in
observation.
being intentional, because when you do it.
Yeah. Amanda and I were talking with another couple and just kind of helping them work through some stuff. And that was one of the issues with this couple was one of the spouses was like super controlling. Like not intentionally, but didn't realize like they were still being really controlling. Like kind of short-tempered sometimes, back and forth, but then was like actually falling back to like super controlling ways and wasn't aware of it. And the other spouse didn't want to say anything. Yep. And it was kind of like, hey, if you don't say something, they're not going to be able to correct their behavior.
You don't know what you don't know.
Like you actually, when it comes to things like that, you can't like beat around the bush and be, you actually have to identify like the issue and 100%. Say, hey, hey, you're actually being very controlling. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're not wanting to be controlling, but like this is a way that I'm feeling. I feel that you're being very controlling and that you're starting to go back to how things used to be when we were having problems. I didn't say something sooner, and I should have, and I'm sorry. That's my fault for not saying something sooner. Here's what I think, would help us. This is what I'm going to do. And so you're using that framework. We've talked about that, but you can use that framework to identify something that's a problem and, the impact of the relationship and finding your fault in that and coming together with a solution. And, but once those things are addressed, then you can have those, hey, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can actually hear that from your spouse because this woman needs to hear that from her husband, but she's not going to because he's not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like one of those things where I was like thinking about it to myself. I'm like, I wonder how often I do that with Amanda, not even knowing. And how many times is she just not saying something? Mm-hmm. And how many times is it just being brushed under the rug? And it's like you sweep something on the rug, okay, and then you sweep something else, okay. Pretty soon you have a monster that's going to rear up, and it's going to trip you.
I know that from experience.
I mean, we all do. And so it was just, it was a very unique, just kind of situation. We're trying to help them through, but then I'm like, wait
a minute, a little self-reflection.
Am I doing this?
Self-reflection, man. The key trait of people who, I guess, that is a marker of humility is like self-assessment. It's like, am I doing this right? And I think that the only way that you become humble enough to self-assess is to know, like, to be in right standing with God, to know where you fall on, the spectrum of perfection, which is way off the far, way off the one end of the spectrum, the not good end of the spectrum.
The not perfect
end. Not perfect end.
Yeah. I think like for those that are listening that are in a relationship, I challenge you, and I challenge myself and you guys as well to go have this conversation with your wives, is it's good to do a self-assessment, but your perspective is flawed. Mm-hmm. And it would be unique if we were to have these conversations with our wives and say, hey, I know to me things seem all right, but I know I have flaws, and I know our relationship's not perfect. No fighting, no arguing. My ego's not getting involved. My feelings aren't going to get hurt. What have I been doing that bothers you or frustrates you? Or what are some things that you haven't touched?
I'm falling short.
And I'm falling short. Or like, where am I not leading you? Where am I not serving you? How am I not, how am I not treating you properly? Because I think it would be very unique. I think, Amanda and I mean, fortunately, because of our stuff before in the past, I think we do this a little more naturally anyways. And I will say Amanda has a lot more boldness to bring this up to me. Like if I'm doing something, she's like, hey, I need your help right now.
Kim's the same.
I need you to stop, like, talking to me that way. Or, hey, when I do this to frustrate you, like, I'm sorry I didn't mean to frustrate you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, I can see it on your face. And I'm like, okay, I'll try to work on that. But because we have been divorced and worked to get our marriage back and had ups and downs even when we got our marriage back that we had to work through and those things, like, we've been through some stuff that Amanda has that boldness to talk to me and just straight up be like, hey, you need to stop doing this, or I need you to do this.
Yeah.
And I have the ability to do that with her too, where I'll just be like, hey, you realize that when you talk to the girls like this, you're doing this. She's like, no, I don't. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm telling you. And she's like, okay, well, that's what I need. I need your help.
Yeah.
And remember, we're a team. And so, like, we work
Yeah.
through. And so I will say, I'm thankful that we have that. But I think, man, I'm going to do what we just talked about.
Same.
Just say, hey, but I really want to challenge everybody to, when you do this, to create an environment where your spouse or your significant other feels comfortable to tell you anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you better mean it.
It
you better
happens-
mean it.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I'm not going to get mad. I'm not. Like, if you say that,
Yep.
Then you can't get mad.
You better
can't
be
get
ready,
frustrated.
buddy.
Yeah, and
Like-
you just be open to the criticism and just understand that, I mean,
I've done this before, and my natural instinct immediately was like, well, no, I mean, that's not how.
but I'm not doing
That's
that.
not, no. Yeah. No, you misunderstood what I was doing or saying or why I said it that way.
Wrong.
No, wrong. Right off the bat.
Nah.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah. Well,
That's solid.
so I have that's great advice that I'm going to take. Well, so just on the family topic, I have one question for you guys, and this is just personal curiosity about, because we were talking about words and wounds and all this stuff. But I want to ask you guys, and it can be short. But this is for my own personal gain. How do you? So I love to encourage my kids, and I want them to be confident. I want them to know their identity in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to feel valued from me and from my wife.
Yeah.
And be built up and be encouraged. But I also don't want them to be like spoiled or have a false sense of confidence or. You know, so like you guys having slightly older kids than mine, how do you like build them up and encourage them and make sure that they do feel valued and feel, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Because like you've seen people, like sometimes kids grow up and they're just told they're so great all the time, and they're never like critiqued or they're never refined.
I let my kids fail all the time.
Okay.
I'm not going to let my kids drive off the cliff, but Amanda and I let them brush up against the guardrails of failure
Yeah.
constantly.
Yep.
To where it forces them to think and work through things.
Right.
Now, bro, outside of salvation, you're giving your kid one of the greatest gifts, and that's jiu-jitsu. And here's why. And I know that's an arrogant statement. Jiu-jitsu represents life.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu will humble you. Jiu-jitsu requires you to think and to think strategic while acting tactically to get stuff done.
Yep.
It requires you to build relationships. It requires you to communicate. It requires you to listen.
Yep.
It requires you to assess and comprehend things. It gives you confidence. It's going to humble you every single day. And it's going to show you, oh, you're not actually the best person out there, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's why I was so proud of Cora after that tournament. When she went, she lost both of her matches. And I told her, I'm like, I'm so grateful you had those matches against top-ranked girls as your first two matches because everything else is going to be awesome. Not going to be easy.
Yep.
And I don't know when you're going to win. And I don't care.
Yep.
And her attitude has been like, oh, that's awesome. And
She has a very honest understanding of who she is, and I think that's why her response was so mature. It was like it came from a place of not thinking.
Well, she asked you too, like, how did I really do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
that's
was
what
just
you-
like, girl.
We're
Yeah.
super proud of you.
Yes.
Yeah. And and thank you for that compliment of Cora. But the reason why is because of this. We legitimately let our kids fail and struggle and work through things, and then we compliment them and we encourage them and we remind them that they are wonderfully made
Yes.
in the image of God. And that I'm like, I'll text Aiden and I'm like, hey bud, I hope you're having a great day. I just want to let you know that I love you and I'm proud of the young man that you are.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, right? And I'll tell the girls all the time, I love you guys. I'm proud of you. Like, hey, great job at Jiu-Jitsu today. Hey, appreciate you guys working around the house. Hey, thanks for waking up early and us getting, you know what I mean? Like, it's words of encouragement to our kids. It's not like you're the best at these things. Now, if they do perform at a high level and do something, right? Like, Aiden knows that he's not the best wrestler. But you know what? He's a good wrestler. Yeah. And do you think we are proud of his wrestling season?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Homeboy wrestled with a broken hand.
And got some wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, spiral fracture in his hand, taped it up, wrestled to get the varsity spot back, won that spot. Next day, retape it. You know what I mean? Like, goes and has these crazy matches. And it's just, yes, hey, bro, I'm proud of you. I don't care that, you know, you didn't go to states. I don't care that you didn't win. Like, that was, you know, in my podcast 2 episodes ago, I read the speech that I gave at his wrestling tournament. And part of what I was saying is like, hey, being a champion is cool. Having your hand raised is cool. But none of that stuff matters long term. Like, are you a champion in life? Yeah. Like, and so I think when we teach our kids the Bible, and we encourage them to read the Bible and pray and teach them how to pray. Acts, that's a great model. Yeah. Teaching them the promise principles, that's incredible. Teach them how to pray with intent. Like, you know, like, hey, make sure you're being intentional with your prayers. And then what they're going to say? Most likely is like, okay, Dad. And they're like, what does that mean? But, you know, showing them, giving them an example. I think, you know.
No, it's great.
I think that's what
that totally
helps.
Answered my question.
I don't know. That's just what we've been doing. I think we've been doing a decent job. I mean, Aiden's 18. He's never been in trouble. You
definitely have. I wouldn't have asked you both if I didn't see it playing out in your life with your kids and just their identity and how humble and realistic they are about themselves, their abilities. They're confident. They're not overconfident. They're not cocky. No. But they're humble. But they're not just so reserved. They're not just. They don't doubt themselves, you know. So anyway, that's I wanted to ask because
I don't think I could. Yeah, I mean, you can't really add anything to that. Maybe one other step, which is obvious, is they see us living it out in our lives too, and just being real about things with them, like owning your mistakes, like that. It's They see it.
Oh yeah.
So they're gonna see it either way. So you can live in denial or not.
I love it. I see it sometimes. Zeke comes up to me, and we'll end right now. But Zeke comes up to me. He's like Salem made a big mess. Right after they just finished cleaning, they spent like 30 minutes cleaning, and then like really quick they had dumped out a bunch of stuff, and I was like frustrated, man. And I probably was my tone was probably a little louder than it should have been. But you guys got to come clean this up right now. I go into the living room, sit down on the chair. Zeke comes over to me. He's like, hey, Dad, I should have told I saw what Sayla was doing. I should have told her not to mess with that. And
kid's taking ownership.
He says
already.
He says I know better, and I could have helped her. I could have helped her not make a big mess. So I'm sorry for that, Dad. I'm like, and then immediately the disarming the ownership. No, bub, you guys cleaned it up. I could have brought y'all out here and fed you. Like immediately we're back and forth trading ownership. So it was super cool to watch it actually
doing that with your 6-year-old son.
I know, man. I know, right? Fighting over ownership with him. So cool.
No, it was me.
Yeah, it was great.
That's incredible.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks for your wisdom on that, both of you. It was awesome and encouraging. And thank you to Matt Chandler for this book. You guys go check out The Overcomers. Check out Matt's page and be encouraged by it. So we're going to wrap. Josh, you want to
let's go
pray for us, brother?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time we've had together. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to sit here with this platform to talk about you a little bit and some of the things we've learned, for the opportunity to share your scripture and some insights. Lord, I thank you for using us. And I pray that you would be with all our listeners as let them get something good out of this, and to continue to seek you in all they do, Lord. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you for listening to this episode 62062 of the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
Go train.